Well, hello to everyone. Dr. Pullam here with one of our very first interviews for our organizational leadership program and for our classes. I am very excited today to have an old friend and colleague. Um, I met her at the University of North Texas. She was one of the directors for the professional leadership program. Her name is Dr. Rachel Cleveland. And we are excited to have insight on her career, insight on what she feels leadership means and what it is, and other things about her journey that will be helpful to you in navigating not only this degree plan, but also how you navigate the future of your professional career and your outlook on your professional career. So, hello to Dr. Cleveland. I'm trying to keep this very general because I want to be able to use this over
Yeah,
semesters and years and not really give time frames and
I
dates.
love it.
But the first question I wanted to start with was um, please give us your background, tell us
Mhm.
about your career, if you want to share where you're from, kind of build that foundation. Uh, Especially because I mentioned that you worked in the professional leadership program, how
Yeah.
important it is just to understand who you are when it comes to introducing yourself to other people. But you have the
Yeah.
floor.
Great question. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk with you all today. And hopefully something I said sparks with some of you. As Dr. Pullen mentioned, my name is Rachel Cleveland. I'm also a doctor, though I don't often use the doctor or the PhD as much as I probably should since we earn it, right? Um, Dr. Pullen and I, as he said, met at the University of North Texas, which really actually started most of my career in the kind of the concept of leadership in general. I spent 7 years with the professional leadership program at UNT, and all we did throughout those years was develop students into servant leaders through mentorship, through professional etiquette, through all kinds of different opportunities to grow as an individual as you face your career and as you face your next steps and next phase in life. So I spent 7 years building that curriculum, encouraging and mentoring those students, and then also helping them grow into, the career ready professional that they want to be, whatever industry that it was. While I was at UNT, I completed a PhD in higher education. I have a huge passion for students, for advancing students, for helping them be the best version of themselves, both in college and after college. And from there, I really got into a lot of the policy and kind of the background of what makes higher education and institutions places where students can flourish. So I took that knowledge and I took that passion and became a consultant in higher education. I moved from the Dallas-Fort Worth area to the Washington, D.C. area, which was a whole other learning experience in and of itself. Relocating for a job can be its own conversation one day. So moved to Washington, D.C., became a consultant for higher education, helping presidents, student affairs professionals, advancement people, all of them with their different agendas and how you advance a university and help students flourish both on campus and after campus. And from that experience, I learned as much as I love being engaged with executive level institutional peers, I really missed kind of that level of mentoring. And so McKinsey Consulting has an opportunity called the Professional Development Manager. And so I got to be a manager for almost 100 consultants for the last almost 3 years now, where I helped them shape their career at the company, help them find opportunities for projects and people that they wanted to work on that would help them flourish, and then used that as an opportunity to help them grow and advance their careers within the firm itself. So I left McKinsey in February and made the what I am calling the best craziest decision of my life. And I started my own company in February of this year. It's called Gather and Go Network. And it allows me to combine my passion for traveling with my passion for helping students grow and advance. So, through gap year experiences, or for those who are older and going into the career professional world, sabbatical years now are really common, where you're taking time off from work to figure out who you are as a person and an individual, to grow in a lot of soft skill development areas, but also to be able to take that wisdom and knowledge and kind of mental health awareness back to career, professional exploration, even master's degrees, right? So you're going from one thing to the next. So a gap year or sabbatical year gives you that opportunity to do that. Whether that year is 3 months or 6 months or a whole year in and of itself, it gives you that space to grow in a way that sometimes we don't get to do when we're in our normal lives. So that's kind of what brought me here. So I went from an assistant director in higher education to now I am CEO, HR, legal, marketing, accounting, and everything else in between. So it's been quite a journey, but always with that thread of helping people, and helping people be the best version of themselves has always been kind of the commonality in any of my roles.
Great, great. So I mentioned that in meeting Rachel at UNT, the program, the professional leadership program, was a program that was nationally recognized.
Mm-hmm.
It brought together the best and the brightest students that the University of North Texas and Denton had to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And Rachel, as part of that leadership team, even molded further those great minds into students and upcoming graduates that had opportunities at employers that
Mm-hmm.
most students never even get a chance to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Their premise was teaching them leadership. And so I
Mm-hmm.
want you to go into detail about leadership, organizational leadership, what it means to you, how
Yeah.
you molded a great mind already into even elevating their academics and their personal and professional lives even more. Tell us more about that, please.
Yeah. So the professional leadership program and even myself are grounded on the concept of servant leadership. And what that means to me is that you come to any role, any opportunity that you have with the attitude of, how can I help? What can I do to make this better? How can I, make you have an easier experience? How can we work together to make this better for our clients or better for our customers, right? So it's less about I'm here for myself and I'm here to, make my name known. And instead, it's more of the mindset of, I want us all to be the best versions of ourselves here at work, because that means that we are producing the best product we absolutely can, whatever that product is. And so I learned a lot, I think, about that concept in general, but I really just got to see it in action through our mentors. So I would say that some of the things about leadership in general, that I've been thankful to learn, have been from mentors. So whether it's somebody that you have a formal, agreement with, of like, hey, you're going to be my mentor and I want to be your mentee and I want to learn from you from these things, to somebody that is, maybe a couple steps ahead of you in life, or in a position you want to be in one day, whether it's in their career or in their personal lives, and you just have regular conversations with them, whether it's about life or about a decision you're trying to make, using and leveraging this person as someone in your corner, or we used to call it in PLP, your board of directors. You have this handful of people that you go to for advice, to glean insights from, to grow, to learn from. And I think that that's a big part of leadership. So, servant leadership, one being one, that's the attitude that you come to the workplace or you come to your sphere of influence for. And then mentorship being the way that you all flourish together in that environment. And organizational leadership to me is really what that is. It's that sphere of influence. Whether you're the intern or the person working in the mail room, all the way up to middle management or CEO, it doesn't matter what your title is or what your role you have. You have influence over yourself and your attitude and the way that you come to work, but you also have influence over the people around you. Whether they're in the same role as you or they're above you or they're trying to be where you are, right? Maybe you've become the person that they want to be when they grow up, so to speak. I think that that's what organizational leadership means to me, is that how are you using that sphere of influence to make things better for yourself, for those around you, for the organization as a whole. So PLP really taught me a good amount about both mentorship and servant leadership, but it really changed the way that I looked at organizational leadership, because I used to see it as titles. I used to see it as how many zeros you had on your paycheck, or what's my level of advancement in this company, and how many levels do I have to get through to get there, which can be important. It's not that those things aren't things that you need. We all know you need money to be able to live in this world. But at the end of the day, if what you're doing doesn't serve purpose and doesn't give you energy and doesn't help those around you, at least for me, there's no way for me to find joy and contentment and happiness in that scenario if those things aren't there. And so I've really evolved, I think, my definition of what that looks like, and the different people that I've carried with me to help me kind of mold that definition.
Amazing, amazing. And I want to frame all of this in the fact that you have to be aware
Mhm.
of who you are as an individual, as a person, as a professional, but
Yeah.
also surround yourself, as she mentioned, with mentors who can help you continue to grow. This
Hmm.
program, that professional leadership program, when I tell you they had major employers coming to Denton,
Hmm.
Texas, and she even mentioned McKinsey, which is one of the top global consulting firms.
Right.
Uh, the top accounting agencies would come, the big four, you name it. They had the influence and they had the partnerships.
Mhm.
And the only way that you do that is the way that they approached leadership, because they took self out of it.
Mhm.
They were helping, and that's one of the things that you'll find out when you're working in a professional organization, is what they really want to know from you is what happens when they put you in front of one of their customers.
Yeah.
Are you arrogant, or are you coming from a position of servant leadership? A
Mhm.
couple of the titles of some of our classes, I'm going to ask you. One in particular is called Ethics and
Mm.
Leadership, and we'll talk a lot about ethics and integrity. Tell us how your thoughts and feelings on ethics when it comes to leadership.
Um, I think for a lot of people, the higher up in an organization, so quote unquote, the more leadership that you have, sometimes you see the less ethics, right? So it's an inverse of the two.
Mhm.
I've actually left organizations because of that. Meaning I've been getting a great paycheck. I am, even happy with my day to day. But when decisions were made and then I was being asked to be the mouthpiece of these decisions, not only that I didn't agree with, but that I didn't think were right, or for the right reasons, um, it really made me step back and think about, while I might understand why these decisions are being made for, profit margins, for whatever, a company has to stay floating, um, doesn't mean that I have to be here. right? So sometimes that means asking for a new role, right? Removing yourself
Mhm.
from the situation. Sometimes that means, finding the balance of peace. Especially if you're not the one who's being able to make the decisions, right? You're more of a mouthpiece or a player, which I think the majority of us would be in any point in our career. Um, and then the other part is, is it really worth it? And I think at the end of the day, I just decided it wasn't. You couldn't pay me enough to compromise what I know to be right for myself and what I believe to be right for work and for people in general. And when an organization went against that, I really wrestled with it for a couple of months, and it just one day I was like, I just can't. I can't do this anymore." And the funny thing is I felt instantly at peace as soon as I verbalized those words and knew that that was the direction I wanted to go. So it took a little bit of preparing, right? Like I didn't just up and leave a job and not not have a plan. Like, right, again, we all have a mortgage or things that we have to take care of. But I think that that's the difference to me between staying in a role because you feel like you have to versus staying in a role that you know is right, right? And I think that, again, unfortunately, oftentimes the higher up in leadership you get, sometimes your ethics get pushed to the side. Um, that was the really nice thing and amazing thing about starting my own company, even just putting my own policies and procedures together, and I'm the one employee, right? But what a cool practice for me to sit down and write just even for myself of like, this is the standard. This is what I want to be known for. This is how I want to conduct business. This is what I want my clients to know about me and how they are understanding who I am and the level of service that I'm giving to them. Um, and I think that even just writing that for myself, maybe this will work out and I'll be able to work for myself forever. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll take on another role in the future. But just having that written down gives me something to compare it to, whether it's a new company in the future or just myself on a daily basis, that this is what I want to be held accountable for. So I would encourage any student, even now, before you ever get into a company, before almost maybe before you even start investigating where you want to go and doing your research, write down what's important to you and why it's important to you. Because that's not a lie, right? Like, right as soon as you kind of articulate that, you know that that is the truth. So that then when you go to situations or you go to companies and you can compare, you know what's worth keeping and you know what's not worth keeping. And so I would say that, ethics can get really crazy. It doesn't have to, is the thing. And I think sometimes people forget that. It can actually be very simple. There really is right and wrong, right?
Yeah.
And especially when you are doing that for yourself and you set that standard for yourself early on. Again, it doesn't matter if you're the intern or the CEO, you have the responsibility to hold yourself accountable, even if others won't. And even if you're the only one that will know that, that's enough. It's enough that you're the only one. And to me, that is leadership, right?
Right.
That is the heart of what leadership is that you're doing the right thing, one, regardless of who's looking at you. Even more so, though, if people are
Mhm.
looking at you.
Yep. Amazing. Amazing. Tell us about. We have another course called conflict and negotiation. What are your thoughts on strategies or the approach? And I think what's important a lot of times when we are in business and in organizations, people want to know how do we process information and how do we
Mm.
come to our answers. And tell us about that in regards to conflict and negotiation.
Yeah, I have always been one who does not stray from conflict. But here's the truth. I've also worked for people that do, and it's made my job harder. right?
Mm,
So I think that you have to find the right balance of conflict. For most people is uncomfortable. That doesn't mean that it's not necessary. That doesn't mean that it's not helpful. That doesn't mean that it can't be growth for both sides, right? So when conflict is done in a way that is both, I would say, constructive, and in the right time and place and
mm,
tact and
mm.
tone, I
Yes.
think it can be incredibly powerful in a positive way. I do think conflict gets a negative connotation, when it can actually be the motivation to get you moving forward, right? It
Right.
spurs you on, and sometimes that's exactly what you needed to get you moving in the direction that you needed to be moving in the first place. Um, so I would say when it comes to conflict, one, choose it wisely. Some things are worth having conflict over, some things are not. And decide for yourself what those are. But I do think that, especially in a professional setting, there's a time, there's a place, there's a tonality, there's even a delivery method. Like, conflict probably shouldn't be delivered over an email or a Slack message or a text message, right? Like, be the person, if you were having struggles, you would want someone to come and talk to you. So be
Mhm,
that person that goes and talks to them, whether it's a Zoom call in the world that we're in now, right? Or it's a face
mhm,
to face conversation that you're able to have as a sidebar, not in front of other people, but just for you and the other person. And the truth is, not all conflict is resolved. And there's a point of conflict that you need to be okay with it not being resolved, right? You said your
right.
piece, they said theirs, and now we get to all move forward, because at the end of the day, we need to work together, or we need to, solve this problem for our client, or what have you, right? There has to be a world where we move forward. So you have to kind of be okay if the resolution isn't reached, and you have to find a way to move forward. So for me, when I had difficult conversations, or I knew that I had to talk to somebody about something and I was nervous about it, I always had a nice warm cup of tea and a piece of chocolate waiting on me. And you make fun of that, but like, rewarding yourself, I think, for being good at having hard conversations is really important, because we have so many people who are bad at having hard conversations, that you don't
Right.
want to be one of those. you know be
Yes.
one of the ones that's good at it, because then that means you don't have to have them very often, usually.
Right.
So I would say, like, give yourself a reward for having it, even if it didn't meet the in conclusion that you wanted it to have. um, but I would also say that in conflict, negotiations is likely going to come into play, right? It's a compromise.
Mhm,
So I think a lot of people think negotiation is just at your salary, right? It's in the beginning of a job interview or an application or an acceptance process, which is 100% untrue. You are negotiating the entire time you are at a company, for your time, for your attention, for your energy, for your attitude. All of that is a negotiation between you and your manager, between you and the people reporting to you, between you and your spouse or your roommates or whoever is in the world with you, right? Like, all of that is a negotiation, because there's a trade off. There's always a trade off. And that's what negotiation is. So I would say the best part of negotiation for you is know the things that are most important. If you want to leave at 4 o'clock to go pick up your child from school, and that is an important part of your day, that is a non negotiable, right? Which means no one can take that from you, and
right.
no one gets the right to do that. Whatever that looks like, I think that that is something that you need to figure out beforehand as much as possible. Some things you won't know until you get into it. But if there are other things, like, you know what, I'm not going to look at my phone after 6 or 7 o'clock. And believe me, I was in the consulting world and that was a really hard rule to keep, right?
Mm.
And it worked for a while and then you just realize this isn't the balance that I want, right? So you're setting boundaries for yourself. And that's all that negotiating is. You're redistributing where those boundaries are going. You're redefining what that line looks like and where it goes. And I will say you have to do that for yourself because I have yet to meet a company that will do it for you.
That is so true. No lies detected.
No, it's like I've never, even the best ones in the world. You want to work? Great, work. You want to do this? Great, do it, right? Like they will take as much of your working energy as you will give,
Yes,
and no one will tell them otherwise.
no, not at all. So as we wrap up today, and again, we so appreciate your time and your wisdom. What are the things that our students
Mm.
need to know about themselves, the future, and how they approach leadership, and why it's important that through the recruiting process, through the onboarding process, through doing your job well, to wanting to be elevated into your job, what are the things that you must know in order to continue to rise to the level that you want to attain?
I personally believe everything comes down to the relationships that you build. I'm not talking about networking. Networking is fine. It has its place. I have a love-hate relationship with it. It's great. You need to do it, but at the same time, like you need to build authentic, trusting relationships with the people around you in whatever capacity that you can as much as possible because you will see these people more than your family on a daily basis for
Mhm.
most of us. You'll talk to these people more than your family for the most part, right?
Mm.
That's why we joke about having a work dad or a work wife or whatever, right? These are the people that you go to because they see you every day. And I think that when you're starting a new job, when you're trying to figure out who you are in that role and what you want it to be and where you want to go, it's going to be those relationships that help you through figuring out what that is. So again, whether it's a mentor of someone who's further along in the company or outside of the company to give you, kind of external advice, but you have to build trusting relationships, right? If you're in anything customer service related, it's going to be the way that you're able to relate to people that makes you successful in that role. And whether you believe it or not, we're all in customer service. Doesn't matter what your job is. Something about what you do is to make someone else happy or make someone else's life easier. That's literally just how our businesses work in this world. And so I would say that the relationships is the biggest part. It helps you figure out who you are and who you want to be. It helps you figure out, again, back to the ethics or negotiation or what have you, of what is your truth and what is right for you and when is it being pushed, right? Sometimes you have to test that, like, this felt weird. Did you think that felt weird too? Was that just me? Should I be concerned, right? But it's also those people who are going to sing your praises in the right room.
Right.
And whether that means you're advancing and getting new roles and growing, it doesn't matter. But having people as your cheerleaders on a daily basis who know the work that you're doing, the hard work you're putting in, the attitude that you come with to on a regular basis, those are the people that you want singing your praises in your name. You don't want the other ones, right? And hopefully there aren't many of them because you've made all of these relationships. But those are the people on the hard days will encourage you to stick with it. On the amazing days will force you to keep going because you love it so much. And maybe I'm biased because I have been so people oriented in my life and in my career. But I have yet to meet a CEO who didn't know at minimum, their inner circle, the names, the lives of their inner circle people, right? And I think that you need to start thinking of yourself as the CEO. of the CEO of your life, the CEO of the intern class, the CEO of the middle management team. And I think that you will really change the way that you look at work and the way that you look at yourself at work and the way that you relate to other people when you start thinking of yourself that way. And you start looking at relationships in a growing capacity rather than, oh, I have to network and I have to meet somebody so that I can meet somebody else. That's all fine and good. But at the end of the day, you want genuine, authentic relationships with people that will help keep you where you are, happy and content, and help you grow if that's what you're wanting to do. And I would say that that's probably the best. I mean, you can go into professional etiquette, you can go into learning elevator speeches and resumes, but at the end of the day, people want to hire people that they think will gel with their teams. And the
Mhm.
way that you gel with the team is by building friendships and building relationships. Um, I would say the only caution there is that just don't try not to make it a family. Because sometimes that can be its own toxic environment. Oh, you're doing this for the family. I'm like, am I? Am I doing this for the
Am
family?
I?
Yeah, exactly. So there is a level of comfort, but not overextended. But I do think it all comes back to having trusted relationships in and around the workplace at every step along the way.
Well, speaking of relationships, I'm so grateful to have a friend like Dr. Rachel Cleveland, who is amazing. I haven't seen her since I was in DC for another job, and
That's
he made
right.
time to have dinner with me,
That's
and so
right.
and I just texted you out the blue, and she responded, and I'm so grateful to have people that are doing great things and being their own CEO
I know it's weird.
and and willing to share this knowledge. And I'm hopeful that you were able to learn some things and and gain to your personal inventory of how you grow as a person and professionally. And so this concludes this particular speaker series. But again, we'd like to thank Dr. Cleveland and class. We'll talk more about this at a later date.
Thanks so much for having me.